Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 10 and I am Sindy Anggraeni as the first speaker and my friend is Fatimatuzzahro as the second speaker. Okay, this presentation is about basic syntax and production, and now I am as the first speaker, and I wanted to tell about sentence. There are basic syntax and production, and then sentence processing, and then syntactic factors in sentence processing, grammatical classes of words, and the last is content word and function words. Okay, let's start with the first material. The first about basic syntax and production. First of all, basic syntax, the language elements included in the syntax are phrases, clauses, and sentences. The speech in this case concerns whatever the person says in the form of a sentence. According to Ramlan, 1981, this syntax is a part or branch of linguistics which discusses the intricacies of discourse, sentence, clause, and phrase. And then, according to Hickey, 2007, described sentence production given that children acquire syntax by abstracting structures from the particular sentence they hear in their surroundings. It's fair to assume that the assembly of sentences as outlined within the steps below apply to all or any speakers using their native language. The first is choose a syntax or an empty template, and the second is fill the slots in with words or lexical insertion, and the last is utter the particular sentence. Other steps could also be involved in producing particular sentences. Take the case of active and passive sentences. It's obvious that these are related in meaning, and there is a transparent relationship in form also. And then, and the second about sentence processing. Sentence processing takes place whenever a reader or a listener process a language utterance, either in isolation or in the context of a conversation or a text. Many studies of the human language comprehension process have focused on reading of single utterance or sentence without context. Extensive research has shown that language comprehension is affected by context preceding a given utterance as well as many other factors. One reason psycholinguistic consider surprisal as a factor in sentence processing difficulty is that it makes sense in a model of language users, rational learners. And the third about syntactic factors in sentence processing. According to Hickey, 2007 explained syntax in research on syntax has been particularly intensive within the last about 50 years approximately. By and large one can recognize three main aims within the analysis of a syntax contained during this recent literature. The first is to reveal the hierarchy within the ordering of elements, and the second to elucidate how surface ambiguities happen, and the last to demonstrate the relatedness of certain sentence. And the next about grammatical classes of words. According to Moran et al., 2018 described there are three types of grammatically relevant adjectives that distinguish classes of words called part of speech. There are semantic, formal, and functional traits. They have traditionally been the criteria for word type classification. Semantic criteria refer to general semantic properties that are common to an entire class of words. For example, the general or categorical meaning of a noun is thingness of a process verb, of a substantive property adjective, of a non-substantive adverb. Formal criteria include formal features or word building and word alteration, which are sentences for a specific part of speech. For example, nouns are characterized by a set of specific word order affixes. For instance, property, bitterness, workers, and etc. And are modified accordingly by category number, case determination, and articles. For instance, male, M-A-L-E, and extract combination are also a formal features that is relevant for any particular part of speech. For example, verbs can provide words, whereas nouns cannot, except in certain contexts. Functional criteria on functions that are fulfilled by words of a particular class in a sentence. For example, the most typical functions of nouns are those of the subject and the object. The only function of the finite form of a verb is a predicate. Adjectives function in most contexts as attributes. Adverbs as modifiers of adverbs are a part of speech in the English language. Noun, pronoun, verb, adjective, adverb, preposition, conjunction, and interjection. Last but not least, about content word and function words. Content words are words that have meaning. Therefore, we refer to content words as an open class. Nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs are content part of speech. A noun tells us which object, a verb tells us about the action happening or the state. Adjectives give us details about objects and people, and adverbs tell us how, when, or where something is done. Nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs give us important information required for understanding. For example, a noun is to explain person, place, or thing, and the second verb to explain action or state. And the next about adjective is explain, describe an object, person, place, or thing. And the last adverb to tell us how, where, or when something happens. On the other hand, function words help us connect important information. Function words are important for understanding, but they add a little meaning beyond defining the relationship between two words. Function words include auxiliary verbs, prepositions, articles, conjunction, and pronouns. Auxiliary verbs are used to establish the tense. Prepositions show relationship in time and space. Articles show us something that is specific or one of many. And pronoun refer to other nouns. Staub, according to Staub, Deutsch, and Cohen, 2019. Sorry. Okay, that's all from me. And for the next chapter, will be delivered by Fatimatuzzahro. Fatimatuzzahro, the time is yours. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Fatimatuzzahro. I would like to continue the next material. The next material is talk about sentence structure. Sentence structure refers to the physical nature of a sentence and how the elements of the sentence are represented. The basic parts of a sentence are the subject, the verb, and often but not always the object. The subject is usually a noun, a word that names a person, place, or thing. The verb or predicate usually follows the subject and identifies an action or a state of being. Tenney et al. 2019, just like word choice, writers should strive to vary their sentence structure to create rhythmic prose and keep their reader interested. Sentences that require a variation often repeat subject, length, or types. Most sentences in English are constructed using one of the following 5 patterns. First, subject-verb, next subject-verb-object, and then subject-verb-adjective, fourth, subject-verb-adverb, and then the last is subject-verb-noun. Next is about constituent structure. A constituent is defined as someone who has the ability to appoint another person to be a representative. An example of constituent is a register voter. The definition of constituent structure is a formal representation of the grammatical structure of a sentence in terms of its individual. The constituents also the structure which such a representation describes. In English grammar, a constituent is a linguistic part of a larger sentence, phrase, or clause. For instance, all the words and phrases that make up a sentence are said to be constituents of that sentence. A constituent can be a morpheme, word, phrase, or clause. Next, sentence types. There are 4 types of English sentence classified by their purpose. First, declarative sentence or statement. Then, interrogative sentence or question. Next, imperative sentence or we can say command. And then, exclamative sentence or exclamation. Structurally, English sentence can be classified in 4 different ways. Although each of them has an unlimited construction, the classification is based on the number of independent and dependent clauses that contained in a sentence. Independent clauses form complete sentences by themselves, while dependent clauses need other clauses to make a complete sentence. By knowing these types, the writers can add complexity and variety to their sentence. Next, phrase structure and transformational rules. Phrase structure rules are a type of rewrite rule used to describe a given language syntax and are closely associated with the early stage of transformational grammar and proposed by Noam Chomsky in 1957. They are used to break down a natural language sentence into its constituent parts, also known as syntactic categories, including both lexical categories, parts of speech, and phrasal categories. A rule of transformational grammar that relates to phrase markers in the course of a derivation from the deep to the surface syntactic representation of a sentence as by reordering, inserting, or deleting elements, a rule that converts deep structures into surface structures. Next, it's about case grammar. Case grammar is a system of linguistic analysis. It is focusing on the link between the valence or number of subject, object, or the other of a verb and a grammatical context it requires. The system was created by the American linguist that is named Charles G. Fillmore in the context of transformational grammar in 1968. The case indicates the grammatical function of nouns and pronouns according to their relation with the rest of the words in a sentence. In modern English, There are only three kinds of case. First, subjective case, and then objective case, and the last is possessive case. Last, it's about lexical functional grammar. Lexical functional grammar, or we can say LFG, is a constraint-based grammar framework in theoretical linguistics. It is posits two separate levels of syntactic structure, a phrase structure, grammar representation of word, order, and constituency, and a representation of grammatical functions such as subject and object, similar to dependency grammar. However, lexical functional grammar eliminates the need for a multi-level syntactic representation by allowing for such alternations to be accomplished through regular, universally constrained, productive lexical process that determine multiple sets of association of arguments such as them, with grammatical function such as subject, object, considered within this framework to be primitives which then map directly into the syntax.